Mance Rayder, you've been called the king beyond the wall. Westeros only has one king. Bend the knee, I promise you mercy. Kneel and live.
This was my home for many years. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come.
Good morrow, sneaky spiders and drunken dwarves, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, honorary neophyte of the Pilluminati.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, Khaleesi of Cloud Creation.
And this is episode 83.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we are covering Game of Thrones, Season 5, Episode 1, The Wars to Come.
And in case you're not already aware, this series Rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. If not, there's still time to get roasted alive by an angry dragon deep within a dark abyss, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come.
Yes, The Wars to Come. It's mentioned
so
a few
cool,
times
man.
here.
George has, kind of a way with words, as we've discussed before, like the king in the north. He just has like a cool way of saying certain things. And this is another good one, The Wars to Come. I don't know, it's just something cool about it.
And it kind of haunted back to, it haunted back to when we first heard this, but it's later on in the series is when Sir Arthur Dayne says this to Ned Stark at the tower where Lyanna's giving birth.
Yes. Oh, crackpot tinfoil theory. Mance Rayder is Arthur Dayne. No.
Oh, man. Yeah. So that comes up a few times in The Wars to Come. So why don't we switch it up? What is your number 5?
Oh, my God. Getting me unprepared here. My number 5, of course, is Lord of the Vale, Sweet Robin.
The boob.
Yeah, just so funny. We see Ollie getting whooped on by Jon Snow, and then next scene we get Lord Robin Aaron here getting whooped on by some little boy at Lord Royce's place.
Yes. Whooped on is a kind way to put it, Duncan.
Right? So funny. Royce is telling Baelish, she's like, oh my God, my boys had swords in their hands from the time that they were born. And they're just laughing at how terrible Robin is. And what does he say? He swings a sword like a girl with palsy.
Palsy.
Oh my God.
Robin is a part of my number 3, so I might collaborate with you a little bit.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, there isn't really too much to say. I don't have too many notes. I just thought it was so funny just how he was getting whooped so badly.
Totally. Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Baelish is like, I'm sure by the time I return, his skills will have improved immeasurably. Like, yeah, sure.
Royce is like, I can't guarantee that.
Yeah. Oh, man. They're talking about how he's just got no skills. This one, Lord Aaron, will never be a great warrior. And Baelish says he has other gifts. The gift of a great name, which is kind of funny. And we get another reference to the idea of having a great name later when Varys is giving his outrageous qualifications for the proper ruler, the needed ruler to Tyrion.
Yes.
And, we'll talk more about that later. But
he says a gift of a great name, sometimes that's all one needs.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's Baelish in the scene.
I thought he might also be kind of foreshadowing here that he's going to be using Sansa's name to his advantage by selling her to the Boltons.
Totally right. Totally right.
Because right before he says that, he gets a letter, which Sansa takes note of. She, is kind of looking over, and he looks at her, and she, like, pretends like she's not looking at anything. So that's kind of, as a viewer, as a first-time viewer, like, this is kind of a clue that maybe Littlefinger has plans to use Sansa for something to his advantage to benefit him.
Definitely. Great catch. And at the later on, in a later scene, they leave, and instead of going east like they told Lord Royce, they're going west, which is obviously they're going to Winterfell, right?
Yes.
So
they're gonna go through Moat Cailin, which I think is west of the Eyrie, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, their plans are in motion using Sansa's name as well.
Yes.
Good catch. Yes, that pretty much wraps up my number 5. Just a funny little scene that I thought was, I just like it every time we see it. So
yeah, it's a good one.
Pathetic little Robin dangling the sword around. Yeah, exactly.
Save me.
So what's your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 is Tywin's Really Gone.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So I know that we get Maggie the Frog, which actually is not in my top 5.
It's my number 1, so we'll talk about that.
Okay, fabulous. So I'm going to start kind of after Maggie the Frog scene. So Cersei is clearly in her litter thinking back to that memory of Maggie the Frog.
Yep. It's funny how they call those things litters, too. Cracks me up.
I know. I always think of, like, litter box.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
They're just carting them around in a shit box,
Yeah, would
no
that
big
make
deal.
Cersei the turd?
Yes. I love that they don't use very many flashbacks in this show.
Yeah, I don't think they did any at all before this scene.
I believe this is the first flashback that we see, minus Bran's vision when he touches the weirwood tree, which is flash images of what we perceive to be unknown past, present, or future.
Right.
So there could be some stuff in the past there, like flashback wise, but this is the first literal flashback I believe we get on the entire show.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I know we talked about this last week with the use of slow motion. Mm-hmm. And its effects kind of used to dramatize a scene. And I know I said it should be dramatic without slow motion.
Right.
And I think this is the same theory kind of applies to flashbacks. I think flashbacks is a really easy way out to tell us the history of the story.
Right.
And I love that the showrunners and George R.R. Martin don't really use that many flashbacks in their writing. It just makes, when they do use them, they're extremely strong and meaningful. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Like this scene is critical.
It's a critical scene. Absolutely. So Cersei is walking up the stairs and she passes Marjorie. And the look she gives her lets the audience know, the first time viewer know, that Cersei thinks Marjorie is the queen that's coming along, that's more beautiful. And so she gives her that look like, ugh. And Marjorie gives her one right back, which I kind of loved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she walks up and she meets the Septon at the top of the staircase. And, he basically tells her, everybody's been waiting. And she says, I want a moment alone with him. And the Septon goes, they've traveled a long way, Your Grace. And she goes, they will wait. And
oh, yeah, the Septon, yeah.
Yeah, for the people that want to, see Tywin's body. And I'm glad that she stood her ground here. I mean, Cersei is obviously a character that is always going to stand her ground. Mm-hmm. But I think it is appropriate for the family to see his body before the people that have traveled a long way.
And it's also sort of like a little test to see if if people will listen to Cersei now that Tywin's gone.
Yes. Oh, that's a great catch. I didn't even think about it that way. That's very interesting. So she enters the Septon and the Rains of Castamere starts playing and it's very dark. Jaime's there standing over Tywin's body.
And in the book, it's a 7-day vigil, just so you guys know this. So
really?
Jaime would have been standing in there for 7 days in context of like full story context. And every day, Tywin putrefies a little bit more.
Ew.
Yeah.
So he's basically watching his dad decompose.
He's like liquefying by the end of it, basically.
Oh, ew.
Yeah.
Gross.
It's real gnarly.
Yeah, so Cersei, being her bitchy self, looks at Jaime and says, he never wanted you to be a Kingsguard, but here you are protecting his body. And I thought that was kind of an evil sentiment to her brother, because wasn't it the Mad King that had Jaime become a Kingsguard to kind of slap Tywin in the face?
Exactly, yep.
So it wasn't really Jaime's desire in any way to be a Kingsguard.
Right.
And, you know, I know that we don't get that much on the show, if at all, that the Mad King did this on purpose to kind of slap Tywin across the face because the Mad King didn't like Tywin and loved Tywin's wife. Yeah,
they had started out as friends, and then they ended up having, you know, falling out, basically disagreeing with you know, various things. Although in terms of Jaime didn't necessarily strive to be a Kingsguard, and he was appointed that as a slight to Tywin. But also, he did idolize Arthur Dayne, who was a Kingsguard, and maybe it was within his ambitions to become a Kingsguard, to follow in the footsteps of Arthur Dayne.
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
But that wasn't the driving factor of how it ended up happening, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I just thought, from the show's perspective, I think people could take it that Jaime wanted to be a Kingsguard, and he took the oath. You know, I mean, I know he probably took it willingly anyways, but we know from the books it wasn't necessarily his initial idea to become a Kingsguard. He may not have been opposed to it when it was brought to his attention, but he didn't go to his dad and say, hey, I want to go be a Kingsguard.
Definitely. Yep.
So I just wanted to make that little note there that, you know, from a book perspective, that line to Jaime is kind of insulting because it really wasn't his idea.
Yeah, it's like, it's not my fault.
Yeah, but from a show perspective, you could assume that Jaime did choose this and went against his father, and Cersei's given him shit about it, which either way is just not a kind thing for Cersei to do in this situation.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, he's putting up a front of like a unified front, you know, he's projecting a unified front, like they're going to come and try to take everything, we have to protect each other, and she's just like sort of not into it, you know, she doesn't really seem to be on his team.
No, not at all. He goes, what he built, it's ours. He built it for us. He meant it for us. They're going to try and take it away. All of them out there are enemies. They're waiting in line to make sure he's really dead. As soon as they see the stones on his eyes, they'll send weapons tearing us apart.
Yeah.
And that's why I labeled my number 5, Tywin's really gone, because people are waiting to see that he's really gone.
Yeah.
I found this a really important sentence or a paragraph in the script.
Definitely. Because
it is their unraveling as the Lannister house.
Everybody's just waiting to move, waiting to take action. They just want confirmation before they let loose the dogs of war, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny how Cersei knows that he did it, too, that he let Tyrion free.
That's actually kind of right where I was going. She starts just kind of dismissing that whole notion, and she starts going into the man who murdered our father is the enemy. That little monster is out there somewhere drawing breath.
Yeah, she's so like fixated on her hatred for Tyrion. Yes.
And so, you know, Jaime kind of defends him a little bit, and then she figures it out, like, you're the one that let him go. And then I loved this sentiment that Tyrion killed him on purpose, but you killed him by mistake. And I thought that was a really harsh way to put it to her brother.
Yeah, she's really going
by letting
him.
Tyrion go, that's how Tywin died. I mean, that's a true statement.
Yeah, she's like, you just do stuff and never mind the consequences. Well, take a look. Look at the consequences. Here they are. But he could have easily spun this back around on her and been like, the consequences of what I did. The only reason I had to free Tyrion was because you bribed people to make false confessions and false statements against him and had him falsely, imprisoned and ended up being convicted to die. It's your fault that I was forced to take action to save an innocent person and that he decided to kill our dad because he was in on it too. It's fucking Cersei's fault. It's all Cersei's fault.
It is. And I feel like she's kind of projecting it back onto Jaime because I think deep down in a weird way, Cersei knows this.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That this is all her fault. So she wants to kind of pass the
guilt
onto her brother, who by default, like you just said, let an innocent man go, but then ended up committing a crime and killing their dad, which is kind of the unraveling of their house. So it's just this horrid domino effect that really kind of starts with what we'll get into later with Maggie the Frog. And Cersei kind of fulfilling this prophecy of fucking up her house, basically.
Yeah.
So she goes on to say that you're a man of action, aren't you? Never mind the consequences. And, she kind of just keeps rubbing it in. And right before she leaves, she goes, look at the consequences. He loved you more than anyone in this world. And it was interesting. I had kind of a funny thought as I was watching this scene. I was thinking, what if Tyrion... Because I know that there's theories out there that Tyrion is a Targaryen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking just how kind of crazy Cersei is and how kind of calm and collected Jaime is in this scene. And I was thinking, what if Tyrion is Tywin's only son and Cersei and Jaime are the Mad King's children?
Yeah, it'd be so ironic.
Because Cersei even says at one point that when a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin.
Right. And Cersei and Jaime are a perfect manifestation of that, if it's the case, or an illustration of it.
Yeah, and they're twins.
Right. Both sides of the coin.
Both sides of the coin. So I thought that was kind of funny because in the last episode, right before Tyrion kills Tywin, he goes, I am your son.
Right.
So I just thought that was kind of a funny little, I know that there's theories out there, but I just thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, what if we come to find out that, because people make comparisons all the time to Cersei and the Mad King. And so that would make Cersei and Dany half sisters.
Yeah. Damn, that would be bugged out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like Dance of the Dragons round 2 kind of in that case, if that was, if that's accurate.
Yeah. So I just kind of, I mean, there's not really much to go on, but I know that sometimes George R.R. Martin kind of leads people down a rabbit hole, leading them to believe one thing and it's actually something completely different.
Yeah, totally.
So the thought just crossed my mind, and it was just a fleeting thought, but I thought I would bring this up here because it was kind of interesting. What the last thing Tyrion said to his dad and the stark contrast between Cersei and Jaime in this scene, how evil she's being to him and how like calm and collected he's being with her.
There's a scene outside the siege of River Run in the books where Sir Jaime is speaking with one of his aunts or something, like a different Lannister woman. And she's talking with him and comparing Tyrion to Tywin and saying, Tyrion is Tywin's true son, similar with the way that they plan and think and do stuff like that. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting that, Tyrion may have been Tywin's only son,
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that that's in the book too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not so like fleeting.
So much good stuff in the books. Read the books, guys. And if you want a free audiobook, send us an email and we can send you a free audiobook. We haven't really been pumping that lately. We should.
Yeah.
Love giving out free books.
Yeah, it's awesome. You gave me a free book.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I had for this scene. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I guess we can just say Tywin looked creepy as hell with those stones over his eyes.
He looked like his eyes were still open.
Yeah.
Did that not kind of wig you out too?
Yeah, it gives you that uncanny valley effect, they call it, where something is like almost human but not quite, and it makes you feel like disgusted or uneasy, reviled.
Yeah, it was definitely creepy.
Revolted. Yeah, totally.
He's even like overpowering in death. He had like that stare going. I'm like, ooh.
The death stare.
Nice.
Totally. All right, so my number 4 is outrageous qualifications. So Tyrion wants to drink himself to death, and Varys is convincing him to not do that, basically. And Tyrion's like, why'd you save me? And he's like, I didn't do it for you. And true to character, as he's been claiming the whole time, he did it for the realm. He thinks that
Are you thinking like, I believe men have a part to play in the war to come?
Yes, yeah. He thinks that men of talent have a part to play in the war to come. And there it is, that war to come thing again.
Yep.
So they're talking back and forth, and he's basically saying that he has this plan, and he sees what needs to happen to fix the realm, and Tyrion's part of it. And the Seven Kingdoms need someone who's stronger than Tommen, but gentler than Stannis, which is kind of he's looking at all the options, and he's like finding things wrong with all of them. And he need a monarch who can intimidate the High Lords and simultaneously inspire people. A ruler who's loved by millions, who also has a powerful army and the right family name. And we've just had the War of Five Kings going on, and most of them are dead at this point. Actually, all of them, right? Stannis won the War of Five Kings, technically. Oh no, Balon is still alive.
Yeah, I was gonna say Balon's still alive, but he's kind of in disarray because his daughter left, his son's a eunuch, and they're kind of retreating back to
Pike.
To Pike, yeah. So, I mean, technically he's still alive, but he's on the run.
Right. So Tyrion's going over these options in his head too, and he's like, "Yeah, good luck finding him, the guy with those qualifications, because that doesn't exist, dude." And Varys has that great response: "Who said anything about him?"
I love that. I love that so much.
And we realize that there's a player that Varys knows about that Tyrion doesn't really know about to any great extent, and doesn't realize the significance of, for sure. So he tells him, you have a choice. You can stay here at Illyrio's palace and drink yourself to death, or you can ride with me to Meereen, meet Daenerys Targaryen, and decide once and for all if the world is worth fighting for. And I love Tyrion's response there. Can I drink myself to death on the road to Meereen?
I love him.
Classic imp fashion, the god of tits and wine. And
yes.
Yeah, so I just thought it was funny, like these outrageous qualifications. Someone who can intimidate the High Lords, which is fucking crazy. They don't take shit from nobody, you know what I mean? Who can also inspire the people. People don't necessarily typically like the asshole High Lords, so it's not really common for one to be loved by the people. Someone who has a powerful army and the right name, like, what are the odds of that person existing? But Dany meets all the qualifications, and it's just impressive. Varys' long game, because for viewers who may not have realized this, the Mance of Varys' friend, whose place they're at, Illyrio Mopatis, that's the place that Dany was
where Dany started
in episode 1 with Viserys. With their creepy incest brother, kind of, and the guy whispering of dragon banners in Viserys' ear. That was Illyrio Mopatis, and he was the guy also walking through the dungeons of King's Landing of the Red Keep with Varys, talking about if one hand can die, so can the other. And when Arya was hiding inside of Balerion's skull. So he's been a consistent presence, even if it's behind the scenes on the show, throughout the show, kind of. It's pretty cool. So I just kind of like that line, can I drink myself to death on the road to Meereen? Because then we know that Tyrion is at least intrigued by this proposition. It's like, but maybe I will go to Meereen, see what's going on over there. So it's just kind of cool.
Yeah. I love when they start the scene. Tyrion is looking out, off into the ocean, and Varys approaches, and he goes, "The eunuch, the spider, the master of whispers,
half man, imp."
But you can just tell that they have kind of a little friendship through that,
right? Yeah, busting chops.
Yeah, busting chops, exactly, and
it's great.
This is a good scene between the two of them.
Right. And speaking of teams, like Jaime trying to be a team with Cersei and whatnot, that's something that team members do, is like bust chops like that. So
yeah.
It kind of signals that Tyrion and Varys are on the same team. Obviously, they kind of are, because Varys, gave everything up to spirit Tyrion away from danger. But they're talking like they're on the same team, so it's cool. Yeah, I love this combo, man.
Me too.
That would be another great spin-off series.
Yes.
The spider and the imp.
The spider.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nice. Awesome.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Mance and Jon's conversation and just overall respect for each other.
Nice.
Yeah, so we kind of start. I thought about doing Mance's death as my number 4, but I felt like leading their conversation and dialogue leading up to Mance's death was more important than the actual scene itself, in a way.
Sure.
So he goes, "So here we are. This doesn't have to be our last meeting. No, but it will be." And it's like, oh man,
he knows he's gonna die.
Yeah, he's not gonna bend the knee. He figures it out before Jon even says it to him, that he wants me to bend the knee and he wants the free folk to fight for him.
Oh shit, yeah.
So I mean, that's how in tune Mance is to what Westerosi politics, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the "if I, will you" kind of thing. If I give you this, will you do this for me?
Right. Give and take.
So I like Mance's sentiment here with Stannis. He goes, "I respect him. If he gets what he wants, I'll expect he'll be a better ruler than all the fools sitting on the Iron Throne the last 100 years. But I'll never serve him." And I thought that was really cool, because we know that Mance does not like the Night's Watch. He clearly doesn't like the idea of Westerosi politics, because he became the king beyond the wall. Mm-hmm. He actually left that world behind.
Yeah, he's just against the monarchy in general, basically.
But we've seen that he isn't blinded by that. He knows honorable, respectful men when he comes across them. Mm-hmm. And we see this with Jon, and we see it with Stannis.
Yeah, so true.
We know that this is a part of like his personality, his actual meaning. It wasn't just something like him and Jon just happened to connect and bond.
Right.
That Mance sees this in other people too. Even like cold-hearted people like Stannis.
He gives credit where credit's due, regardless of, who it is, basically.
Absolutely. So he keeps on going. He goes, "I don't want them bleeding for Stannis either." So again, it rings true. I want my people to stop dying. Like, that's why we want on the other side of your wall, period. End of story.
You think I'm going to just allow them to fight somebody else's war that we have nothing to do with? If I have to explain that to you, you're not going to get it.
Right. Yeah. So, Jon is still trying to figure out a way to appeal to Mance.
He's pretty crafty, too. He makes some good arguments.
He absolutely does. He said, you spent basically a lifetime bringing together, the wildlings, the Thens, the Hornfoots, the Blackears.
90 tribes for the first time in history.
Yeah, isn't saving them more important than your pride? I mean, I thought that was a really, nice try.
Yeah. Apparently, but unfortunately for Jon, it has nothing to do with his pride.
Yeah, and I think Jon kind of knew that, but he's just trying to find any angle to get.
Yep.
Because a man that can find respect and honor and, people that maybe he doesn't necessarily 100% agree with, it's highly doubtful that he's going to die just for his pride.
Right, for something, superficial and etc. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and he goes, they follow me because they respected me, because they believed in me. The moment I kneel for a Southern king, that's all gone.
That's so true, too. You can lose your entire following by betraying something that, like, if you create a following based on a philosophy, and it's not a cult of personality, they're not going to follow you if you betray the philosophy that you've been a proponent of, that gave you your status and your rise, and their respect. It's like your whole movement will turn on you if you betray their values.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mance does. He is honest here, and he says, "Oh, I am afraid. There's no shame in that." Yep. And I think he's saying this for many things. He's afraid to die. He's afraid for his people. He's afraid for what's coming. He's afraid, and he's saying that there's nothing wrong with being afraid. But
he's being brave too, right? Which harkens back to that Ned Stark quote.
Oh, totally.
Like, what is it? Bran asks him, like, how can you be brave if you're scared? And Ned tells him, you can only be brave
when you're scared.
When you're in fear. So this is Mance exemplifying that here, as well as he's, steadfastly holds his guns and follows through.
Yeah, so he asks Jon, how are they going to do it? And he goes, they're going to burn you alive. And the look on Mance's face was like, oh, bad way to go.
Yeah, it's not cool. Not
That's
cool
like
at all.
The worst way to go.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And I think his sentiment really rings true. I mean, he knows it's going to be very painful, but he goes, I don't want my people to remember me like that, scorched and screaming, but it's better than betraying everything that I believe in.
Right. Yeah. It's so hardcore, man. You got to respect that,
To piggyback on what you were saying about Ned Stark, Mance and Ned Stark are very similar, because the only thing that appealed to Ned was his daughter's life. It wasn't his life.
Mm-hmm.
That he was willing to die for what he believed in and what he knew to be true. But the only reason that got him to go the other way was when Varys said, well, what of your daughter's life, my lord?
Right, like they'll fucking... you don't want to betray the people in charge right now, because your daughters are not going to be happy with the results.
Yeah, and so Jon, he's keeping at Mance. He goes, and what happens to your people? You preserve your dignity and die standing, and they'll sing songs about you. You'd rather die than kneel.
You'd rather burn than kneel.
Oh, burn than kneel. That's right.
Man.
Until winter comes and the White Walkers come for us all, and there's no one left to sing. And okay, before
and now the rains weep over their halls.
Right.
With no one there to hear.
But did you see the teaser that Game of Thrones pushed out yesterday?
I did not.
Okay. It doesn't give much away in the light of you don't see any characters, but it's the opening credit type situation where ice and fire kind of like converge, and it looks to be making like a dragon glass wall.
Whoa.
It's really cool. Yeah. And so when he said like there's until winter comes and the White Walkers come for us all and there's no one left to sing, I'm telling you, I'm not sure this has any type of happy ending at all.
Yeah, I kind of hope it doesn't. Imagine how epic that would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really spoilery, the teaser, so I feel comfortable enough talking about just a little bit of it. But if you read into it, like I watched it 3 or 4 times, and I'm curious to see as season 8 plays out how that kind of 1 minute trailer, or not a trailer, it's a teaser, but it's like the smoke of the snow starts coming down from the north. It freezes a direwolf piece. It freezes a dragon.
Oh, because it's looking at the map, right?
Yes, it's looking at the map, and it's
Aegon's
coming down the
table.
map. It's coming down the map, and it's freezing like down through the neck, and then all of a sudden it pans back to the south, and the Lannister lion ignites and starts moving north, and it kind of converges where I think it might be the neck. It's
Probably.
kind of hard to
Makes
tell.
sense.
But when the fire and the ice converge, all this like black spiky stuff starts popping up, and it looks to be making like a dragon glass
Obsidian.
wall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Damn, that sounds
And
so
then it
cool.
kind of just cuts to black. But I mean, you can kind of read into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I just thought, okay, the Stark got iced over, the Targaryen got iced over, the dragon, the Lannister lit on fire.
Yeah, what the
and
fuck?
I thought to myself, kind of Cersei's own undoing. She's kind of lighting her house on fire because she just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
This house to the ground
Yep.
before I let that happen.
Yep. So if I take it literally, none of the houses survive.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But we'll see.
Then the wheel will
But
truly be broken.
I would love to hear if any of our listeners watched the teaser and have any kind of theories on what they think it's foreshadowing.
Yeah, and I'll have to watch it too because it definitely doesn't sound like spoilery. Like there's no like scenes or anything.
No.
Which is why I typically I watch one trailer, the first one that comes out that shows scenes from the upcoming season, and then I don't watch any more promos. But I don't know. I might not watch any this year except for this one because it doesn't show
This
anything.
one is okay. I was apprehensive to watch it because I was afraid that it was going to be more like a trailer.
Right.
And it has nothing. There's no scenes. It's just the board, the
Cool.
map.
Yeah, that sounds
and
cool.
it just fire and ice converging kind of in the center of Westeros.
Oh man, I can't freaking wait. I'm looking forward to going into it as blind as possible.
Yeah, me too.
Nice.
But anyways, so that's when we get Mance's kind of response to him. If you can't understand why I won't enlist my people in a foreigner's war, there's no point explaining it to you.
Yep.
And, John says, I think you're making a terrible mistake. And he goes, the freedom to make my own mistakes is all I ever wanted. And
Did
it's
that
kind of
ring
like,
a bell?
Yes, it does.
Reminded you of what Danny said?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, about how the freedom to make your own. I don't remember how exactly she phrased it when she was
To
talking
make your own
Finesse.
choices.
Yeah, even if it's to like wave away your own freedom, that's your choice to do.
It's your choice. Yeah. Freedom means making your own choices, I believe were her words.
Nice. Yeah. So I wonder how she would have gotten along with Mance.
Pretty good. I think Mance is kind of one of those people that gets along with a lot of people, but
Yeah.
if you're not gonna get along with him, then he's just gonna fucking kill you.
Right. How about this though? Like his whole group of people that are sort of following him are what? The free folk,
Yeah.
And Danny's whole group of people
yeah.
that are following her are folks that she's freed.
That's
Free
so
folk,
true.
So they have a lot of similarities. Thinking that it's important for people to have the freedom to make their own choices and mistakes, even if it's doing something that gets you killed, or if it's something that like where you're giving away your rights, and choosing to be a slave.
Totally.
They both have very similar values and followings, and so it's just kind of cool. They've also done things that other people haven't done, like Mance has united all these tribes. Danny has freed all these people and united the Dothraki and all these different people from around Slaver's Bay together, like
That's
a
so
mishmash
true.
of people from sellsword companies and ex-slaves and other people, Dothraki warriors and everything, unsullied.
It never even occurred to me that they had kind of a parallel story.
Neither had it to me. It just kind of hit me right now looking at this quote here from Mance saying that the freedom to make my own mistakes was all I ever wanted. Because I respect that. That's something that I would agree with.
Yeah, I do too. That's awesome. So that pretty much wraps up, what was that, my number 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so what is do you have any notes on this, or do you want to move into your number 3?
We can talk. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, I guess, because my number 2 is Steadfast Mance.
Oh, walking to his death.
Yeah, just his stubborn attitude in general. You just can't change his mind, Yeah. It's great. My number 3 is fighting your inner dragons.
Okay.
Usually, you're fighting your inner demons, but in Dany's case, it's dragons, because she's a dragon and she has dragons, and dragons can be used for good or for bad, and if they're not properly controlled, they're basically demons, right?
Pretty much, yep.
So it starts off with Hizdar, who really wants to open those freaking fighting pits. What's up with that? Like, he's so obsessed with the fighting pits.
I think that, so I labeled, this is actually, I think, a part of my number 2, and I labeled my number 2 concessions. Because he was a diplomat sent to Astapor to kind of negotiate, and one of their kind of, he's kind of the messenger in this situation.
Right.
It was the Astaporian previous masters that wanted to reopen the fighting pits.
Yep.
And he's just passing the message along to Dany, saying like, look, this was a success. You sending me to Astapor was a success, but they have a concession that they want to make with you, that they'll do everything you say, but they want to reopen the fighting pits and have free men fight in them.
Right. I'm wondering if this is really, if they really care about tradition and stuff, or if they think that by, ceremoniously reopening the fighting pits, that it's an opportunity to get Dany in a place where she can be surrounded by their people. Because I
think that's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it could be a setup, as well as under the guise of, we just want to preserve traditions. But they'd know when she shows up at Daznak's pit to reopen them officially, that they can have people all around.
But I don't think Hizdar thinks that here. I think they just approached him as we'll do what she says. This is our concession to do it. So he's passing that message along, because I'm not really sure that he had a part as far as trying to kill her. I don't feel like he was a part of that.
Yeah, on the show it doesn't seem like it, because he gets killed by one of the Sons of the Harpy, right? They jab him with a spear.
Yeah, and he looks super surprised, and he doesn't really know what's going on, and he agrees to marry her, and I mean...
so maybe he's just a useful idiot.
I don't think he necessarily agrees with everything that she's doing, but he also respects her enough to marry her, that she's trying to do some good, that she's, she does reopen the fighting pit. She is listening.
She shows restraint, doesn't execute him.
Yeah, she let him bury her father, or his father.
Right.
So I don't think he's a part of
the Sons of the Harpy.
The Sons of the Harpy. I think he was truly just passing this message along as a concession. But I think you nailed it on the head, that the Astaporians, who kind of are funding the Sons of the Harpy, are doing it so they can get her in that arena and surrounded by the Sons of the Harpy to kill her.
Bastards. Those guys are scumbags, man.
Yeah, big time.
That poor Unsullied.
Oh, I know.
In this episode, he's not even going to, to the whorehouse for sexual intimacy. He's just going there to
cuddle,
to feel loved, to get something that he'd some emotional intimacy that he never got to experience.
Human touch.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Really fucking brutal. And the way that his throat is slit while she's rubbing his head and humming to him and everything, it's super disturbing.
It's very disturbing.
And then she gets up and her attitude is completely different, and that guy is just looming over them, looking through the mask, and you're just
I know.
And normally, a lot of times when people on TV get their throat slit, they die instantly. It's super unrealistic. But in this case, the blood's shooting out all over the place, and he's lying on his back looking at what's going on, and it takes a number of seconds, before he loses consciousness and everything. And that I thought felt more realistic.
They do that all the time in this show too.
Right.
Like the people that get their throats slit don't die right away. Or like get stabbed in the gut, they don't die right away either.
Yeah, and sometimes they even just magically heal, like Arya.
Yeah.
Totally. So, yeah, right, concessions. So they make, she's like, I'm not going to fucking open the fighting pits. And then she's sitting there with Dario. And she learns that his mother was a whore and that he gained his current status by being a fighter in the fighting pits. There's some funny little stuff along the way there too when we were learning this. So one day when I was 12, she sold me to a slaver. She fucked the night before. Danny's like, I'm sorry. He's like, why? I was a bad child. I thought that was kind of funny. I can just picture him being like a shit little kid,
Oh, big time.
Hilarious. Like he doesn't even listen to the queen, Definitely not. He'll listen to his mom.
No. Breaking into her private quarters.
Yeah, swimming miles to just give her flowers and like flirt with her relentlessly.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm jealous of him in this scene. And yeah, so he basically gives her his little story about how he got to where he is now. And I liked his line to her that you're the queen. Everyone's too afraid of you to speak the truth. Everyone but me. And she kind of sort of like, like at that point starts listening a little more intently and like realizing the perspective of the situation. And he basically is telling her like, you need to show your strength immediately. They can't see weakness or they'll attack. You're not the mother of Unsullied, you're the mother of dragons, and she's trying to suppress her dragon urges here after what happened with the little girl. She says, I don't want another child's bones dropped at my feet. And she's like, is having major PTSD about this whole thing. But honestly, she should have seen this all coming. Does she not know what dragons are or like what they do?
I think it's really sad when she goes, I can't control them anymore.
Right. Yeah. And that it is really sad.
It's like, she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I control them?
Yeah. George R.R. Martin recently commented about this, saying that there like information in the new Fire and Blood book that he released, there would be more information about like how the dragons were managed by the Targaryen dynasties before, when they actually had thousands of years of experience and techniques and stuff. I'm surprised that they didn't like that. It's not more documented, or that the Viserys didn't know more about dragons. I guess, I mean, they've been dead for hundreds of years, so there wouldn't be any practical purpose. But you'd think that the Targaryens would just be trained in like,
they would have written it down.
Yeah, methods of like how they managed their dragon pets and whatnot.
Maybe they did, and it's just they're like lost homes, or they were burned up in that fire in the Citadel or something. Maybe,
yeah. And like you said, yeah, she can't control them anymore, and it's similar sort of to the way like if there's like a societal breakdown and like a bottleneck of the population where a lot of people die, the people that are remaining wouldn't necessarily have the capability to like use the technology, rebuild the cars and the airplanes and everything like that. Like one of the recent episodes of Walking Dead, little Judith is saying, she's got a math problem. If one airplane is going west at 200 miles an hour and another airplane's going east at 400 miles an hour, and they start from, X apart, how long does it take for them to meet each other? And Negan's like, you ever see an airplane fly? No. You think you'll ever will see an airplane fly? Focus on things that are happening now, like
right.
It's not necessary. So the point is that she's stuck with this thing that she has no understanding of. And it's not good for anybody. It's just a breakdown of the order of things, and Yeah, it's just unfortunate. George said that maybe if she had access to Maester Gildane's book or whatever, whoever wrote Fire and Blood, whichever Maester it was that wrote that, maybe if she had found this tome, it would have helped her a lot in her dealings in Slaver's Bay and helping raise the dragons and whatnot. So it's too bad that she didn't have that information.
Yeah, and I also like in this scene too when I know that you had just talked about this, when Daario says, as soon as they see weakness, they will attack. Show your strength here and now. This is the same exact sentiment that Jaime is giving Cersei in this episode as well.
Right. Yeah, good catch. Nice parallel.
Like, we cannot show our weakness at this point.
Right.
Like,
unified front.
We have to just keep going. And, the enemies will come, and at any chance of weakness that they see, they're going to capitalize on that. And, I think the Lannisters are a little bit further down the rabbit hole with that, and the fact that there is clearly a weakness because Tywin's dead. But in this situation, Dany's kind of on the brink of it. She's still got the upper hand, but Daario was warning her, look, if you show any weakness, you're going to get pounced on.
And it's the same thing they tell you if you encounter a bear in the wild, too. You don't run, you don't, cower. You outstretch your arms and make yourself look as huge as you possibly can,
Mm-hmm.
And don't show any weakness.
Yeah, I think I would be eaten.
What is it in India or Indonesia? I can't remember. I think it's India where they have a problem with wild tigers.
Yes.
They'll wear masks on the back of their heads because tigers they don't attack from the front generally. Like if they see your face, they won't attack. It's the same type of thing. Like you turn your back, you show weakness, they'll get you. So they wear masks on the back of their heads to try to repel tigers.
That's
Tiger
creepy.
repellent masks. Fuck yeah. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So she is still freaking out about Zala, I think the little girl's name is, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Zala?
Yeah.
But yeah, she should have seen it coming. It's tragic. She doesn't have all the info, doesn't know how to control them. But she, kind of set herself up for this. So this is also a thing. She's like, no one's seen Drogon in weeks. For all I know, he's flown halfway across the world. Spin-off show idea! Drogon's adventures, just him flying around, just destroying everything and everyone in his path.
Yes.
Yes, the ultimate spin-off.
I am so excited we'll talk about it in detail when when Tyrion and Jorah are rowing through Valyria.
Oh yeah, so cool.
That is
man.
one of my favorite scenes in the series.
Yeah, so on Drogon's adventures, we could see that from Drogon's perspective.
Yes, please. I'm so excited to talk about that scene.
Yeah, me too. I love that scene. So cool.
Okay, cool.
I got some cool art of that scene too. It'll be up in the studio when we start broadcasting.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's not spoil it on this episode because I have a lot to talk about with that scene.
Right.
I haven't even watched it yet, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Bullet points.
Yeah, totally. So basically, at this point, Dany knows she needs to do something. She's being told to be a dragon, and that's one of her constant battles is. Even, remember in season 6, I think it is, or 7, it must be season 7, she's on Dragonstone.
Olenna,
yeah, and she's meeting with the Queen of Thorns, and the Queen of Thorns is like, be a dragon. That's basically what Daario is saying here. A dragon queen with no dragons is not a queen. She's not the Queen of Unsullied, she's the Queen of Dragons. Be a dragon. So this is another identity crisis. We have Arya trying to figure out who she is. Is she no one? Is she someone? Is she Squab? Is she Aerie? You got Reek and Theon and that whole identity crisis. And then this is sort of like a different identity crisis that Dany is going through, trying to figure out how she can be a Targaryen but not be an evil bastard, basically.
Yeah.
And be a dragon.
Awesome. Be a dragon.
Yeah. So she needs to do something, and she decides to go see Viserion and Rhaegal. And it's so fucking creepy as she descends into the darkness of this abyss, this crypt, the catacombs. And I love the boulder rolling out of the way and just stepping down into the darkness. She doesn't even have a torch in her hand. When she goes down there, she's got nothing. She's just walking right into the darkness. And
right.
there's
Tyrion that has the torch.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. She just walks into the darkness, and it cuts to a shot from in front of her, and you see one of the chains lying on the ground, and link by link, it starts pulling over towards the right, and one link at a time is being moved, and it's just a really, really cool shot, really creative. And then she's walking along, Viserion, Rhaegal, and all of a sudden, one of them shoots fire, and the other one snaps right at her face. And
it scares the shit out of me every time it happens.
God
like, I know it's coming, but I always jump every time.
Right. Yeah, totally. I forgot kind of how it played out, so I was like, damn, what happens here? And then all of a sudden it lights up and jaws right by the face, and she freaks out by this. She's like, what
she's showing weakness here.
Yeah, showing massive amounts of weakness, just like we were talking about a second ago. Great connection. And so she starts backing up and retreating. And they're not like shooting flames right at her, but they're making it known that they're fucking pissed.
They're so mad.
Dragons is mad. They're like, why the fuck did you leave us here, Mom? It's dark, and there's not enough sheeps and stuff.
They can't even hardly stretch their wings or anything.
Right. Got these heavy ass chains on their necks. And they grow as a result of this. I don't know if the show really makes it explicitly known, but Drogon gets way bigger than Viserion and Rhaegal. Their growth is sort of like stunted by living in this chamber.
Yeah, and Dany even echoes the sentiment in season 7 when they're in...
they're at the dragon pit. They're talking about...
At the dragon pit, and she goes, this was the beginning of the end for my family. We locked them up in here, and they kind of just like dwindled away, basically.
Right. It's a great parallel to this scene. She learns from experience.
Yeah, like
the downfall.
This is exactly what I did to my dragons, and that's why the two of them are smaller, and they just don't. I mean, they're not meant to be caged up or locked away.
Drogon was always a little bigger than the other two. Like, he was the alpha. And they were like not the runts, but they weren't as big as Drogon. But this really exaggerated their differences.
Yeah, so I think it's a nice little parallel that she mentions that when they're in the dragon pit, that this is why they died. We locked them away. Parallel.
They just got smaller and smaller as the generations went, and until the tiniest little one was so tiny,
super teeny tiny.
Yep. So she freaks out and gets the hell out of there, and that pretty much wraps up my number 3. Fighting with your inner dragons is all she's ever known.
Okay, so am I on my number 3?
Yes.
Okay, so my number 3 I labeled near misses.
Nice.
And this talks about kind of Brienne and Pod. There's, kind of out. They're hundreds of miles from King's Landing. No one knows what you look like. No one cares. Basically, get lost, Pod. Brianna's done with you.
Right, yeah. You're not even a squire. Because I'm not a knight. You can't be a squire.
Yeah, I'm not a knight, which means you're not a squire. And then he's like, where would I go? And she goes, I don't care. I'm not your mother.
She's being brutal. God damn.
I think she's sulking a little bit here.
Yeah, she's upset about losing Arya and failing on her mission.
I swore Arya didn't want to go with me, basically. She doesn't want my protection. And she goes into, a really interesting sentiment that the good lords are dead and the rest are monsters.
Yeah, I love that line.
Yeah, it's
She doesn't think she's a leader either, which is kind of sad.
I was trying to think, because this is like well before she knows that Daenerys Targaryen is a player. This is well before Jon Snow is a player. So really, the sentiment is kind of true right now in this part of the series.
Yeah, that's true.
All the good lords kind of are gone, and the rest are monsters at this moment in time. It changes. And so I call this near misses because in this scene, I love how the camera angle as Sansa and Littlefinger pass, the camera shoots out the window and we see Brienne and Pod out the window. And I thought that this was kind of telling of Brienne and Pod's journey because they're always just kind of nearly missing the Stark girls.
Yeah, like ships in the night.
And they do interact with each of the Stark girls on the way to kind of being with them at Winterfell.
Just very briefly in both cases.
I just loved the cinematography of she's sulking about the Stark girls. You know, Arya doesn't want her help. They can't find Sansa. Right by. And literally, Sansa just goes right by her in a wagon. So funny. Yeah. And just to continue kind of this scene, because now we're in the wagon, you know, Sansa figures out that Littlefinger lied to Lord Royce. And we kind of touched upon this, that they're going west and not to the Fingers.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson, again, you know, kind of the teacher and the student parallel that I've brought up before. This is a good lesson for Sansa that Lord Royce may be honorable, but all the other lords and the ladies in the Vale may not be so trustworthy. I think this is where Sansa learns how to throw off Littlefinger when she's back up at Winterfell with Arya in season 7, because they act like they're against each other. Because they know Littlefinger's watching, and really they're playing him. And it inevitably kills him because she threw him off so well, which is exactly what she learns in this scene, is to throw people off.
Good call. Yeah, that's awesome.
And the fact that they're on their way to Winterfell, I found that kind of telling as well.
It's funny that they say that they're not going to the Fingers also, because in the books they do go to the Fingers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like
funny.
it's like it's like mentioning, it's like a little hint to the some of the audience that like, hey, we're changing it up a little. You know, we're not going to the Fingers.
Because doesn't Jane Poole marry Ramsay?
Yeah, totally different in the books.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah, I think that before they go to the Vale, they stop at the Fingers. Like they leave on ship from King's Landing, go to the Fingers, stay there for a few like weeks or something at Littlefinger's childhood home or something like that.
Got it.
And then he's communicating with Lysa, and they end up going to the Vale.
Yeah, so this was kind of the end of my number 3. So, Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, cool. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is just Mance's whole steadfast attitude and how he's thought a lot about his philosophy, and he's not willing to betray it for anything. And he the way he goes out is super hardcore. He sticks to his guns. He's just about to start like kind of freaking out when Jon puts the arrow in him. But remember before the Battle of Hardhome, when Jon is speaking to the elders of like all the wildlings and everything, and they're like, well, how did Mance Rayder die? This is fucked up. And he's like, well, he's like, I killed him, what the fuck? They'll freak out. Put an arrow through his heart, It's like, come on, Jon, you got to tell people like the context, otherwise it sounds really fucked up. But Tormund sticks up to him, his arrow was mercy.
Yes.
Fucking great line.
It's kind of the same way that Brienne doesn't really divulge to Arya that Oathkeeper was given to her kind of under different circumstances. Jon kind of does the same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, I killed him.
They never want characters to like communicate too well, because then the story would just flow too, things would work out too well and the story would be less interesting, right? So they keep information compartmentalized to some degree and everything like that. It's kind of funny though when Jon is meeting with Stannis and Davos, and Stannis is like basically telling him, I want him to bend his knee, I want the free folk to fight for us, and they sort of tested the waters before divulging that information to Jon by Davos saying that, some people like you, and he's like, the Night's Watch are good men, and some people don't like you. Also, they say you're too close to the wildlings, and and so then after that, they basically say, well, we want to make the wildlings close to the Seven Kingdoms anyway. So obviously, since you're kind of in with them, we want you to talk to Mance, basically.
Yeah,
but
if they swear to follow me, I'll pardon them. We'll take Winterfell, and once the North is won, I'll declare them citizens of the realm.
Yeah, so this is something that's good about Stannis too. He recognizes them as humans, that they're part of the realms of men. And so this is sort of an area that he and Jon can philosophically connect at, where they both, want to just kind of help the wildlings and treat them like humans. Like Stannis sees them as outlaws currently, but is giving them the opportunity to redeem themselves by committing themselves to the laws of the kingdoms and stepping back within the law, essentially. Because that's what Stannis is all about, right?
Yeah, and I mean, when Davos does say, like you just said, you have too much affection for the wildlings, Jon makes a really good point here. He says they were born on the wrong side of the wall. It doesn't make them monsters. Right. Which is basically why they built the wall. It's not to keep the wildlings out. It's to keep the dead out. And, they make a point. It's like, don't you want to go back to Winterfell? Tywin is dead. He can't protect the Boltons. And Stannis is honest with him here. He says, I need more men. I'm talking about the wildlings. And so...
And Jon's like, what?
What the fuck?
Like a funny little moment.
Yeah, he's like, I don't need the Night's Watch. I need the wildlings. And yes, he does, because they're amazing fighters. But I love when, after he says, I'll declare them citizens of the realm, he'll say, I'll give them land to live on. I'll offer them their lives and their freedom if Mance kneels before me and swears his loyalty. And I think Stannis's idea of freedom is way different than Mance's idea of freedom.
Totally, yeah.
Because they're already free.
Right, Mance's idea of freedom is that every man is a sovereign. Right.
Yes.
With the ultimate freedom. Whereas Stannis's idea of freedom is that there's one sovereign, which is the king, and that, everybody else can kind of do what they want as long as they don't fuck with the king's laws, essentially.
And Stannis even echoes what Mance says. He says, I respect him. So they respect each other.
Right. They both know that they're men of, moral character, moral fiber. Yeah, it's interesting. The same thing, kind of like you were saying, how Mance is willing to recognize that where he sees it. Same thing with Stannis,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I liked how Stannis is appealing to Jon here, and he's trying to get him to do what he wants, but he's also giving him good reasons to be on his side. He's like Tywin Lannister's dead, he can't protect these bastards in the North now. Like, I'm going to fucking mount Roose Bolton's head on a spike and take back Winterfell. And later on, he even tells him, like, you can be the Lord of Winterfell. All you got to do is, like, what he's trying to get Stannis to do, or Mance to do, right? Is kneel, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
And Jon won't bend the knee either. He has spent too much time with the free folk. He's one of them now. Like Tormund said.
Yeah, but what I find interesting is Jon does kneel in front of Stannis at the top of the wall.
Oh. Well, yeah, I guess, like, the Night's Watch is sort of still subservient to the king. They just don't take part in, like, politics.
In battles.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
That makes sense that they would, because I thought about that too, like, why, because Jon says, I don't have a king at some point earlier, either in this episode or the last episode.
To Tormund, yeah, right after Tormund's like, you've spent too much time with us, or something. Or that's what resulted in him saying that, I think.
But I think the king also is a huge part of the Night's Watch, and the fact that the king gives them access to the dungeons and allows them to recruit men for the Night's Watch. So there's some type of, respect and understanding that, like, we still have to respect the king.
Yeah, it's definitely like a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, I like Stannis' ideas here. At least he's given him a way to earn what he considers to be freedom. But Mance is steadfast in his dedication to his idea of freedom, which I also respect. There's good things about all these characters in their own ways, which are really interesting.
Yes.
So it's just cool to find out that Stannis is really dedicating his forces to the northern cause and to repel the forces starting in the north, which is interesting. Like, he's got this whole strategy which is starting to develop at this point, which all results from Davos reading that one fucking scroll. Thanks, Shireen,
Right.
The North owes a great debt of gratitude to Shireen Baratheon. So funny.
Absolutely.
So Stannis tells Jon, convince him to bend the knee. And Jon's like, how much time do I have? He's like, nightfall, and the sun drops fast this time of year. Hurry, Jon Snow. It's like, God damn, that's no fucking time at all. Damn it, Stannis.
Stannis the Manus.
So hilarious. He's always saying funny ass shit. It's not meant to be a joke. The sun drops fast this time of year. Hurry, Jon Snow.
Yes.
This is so funny. Love Stannis. So then, the Manus, totally. So, Mance is not stoked about getting burned alive, and Melisandre is all super hardcore. Free folk, there is only one true king, and his name is Stannis.
She's
Here
crazy
stands
in
your
this.
king of lies. Yeah, she's just such a cult leader, Such a cult leader. And it's never easy watching people burn on this show, except for Meereen. That was kind of enjoyable.
Yeah,
sort of.
It was.
You will not hear me scream, Daenerys. I remember when we did that episode, I cut the intro as her starting to be burned alive, and right in the middle of her scream, it was like, ah!
I remember that. That was good.
It was a very strategic audio cut on my part there. I thought that was funny. So Melisandre is going all crazy, and she sets fire to the pyre to burn the king liar.
So just to back up really quickly before we get into that part. So Stannis tells him to kneel and live.
Right, yeah, that was a really good line too. Kneel and live. Loved that.
And then Mance looks at the wildlings and then at Jon, and he pauses, and what does he say? I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. Right, yes. And so I thought I had to stop you because we were talking about that's said multiple times. And this is word for word, if I'm not mistaken, what Sir Arthur Dayne says to Ned.
Yeah, word for word.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we were just making that kind of connection with Mance and Ned. So I wanted to pause and just make sure that we talked about that because I felt that was really important to this scene.
I totally just accidentally skipped over that. Good call. Melisandre's last line is really creepy. Here stands your king of lies. Behold the fate of those who choose the darkness. Really fucking creepy. So Mance is pretty good here. He holds off screaming for the most part. He's just starting to and so then the flames are starting to lick his legs and stuff, and he starts to get more agitated, and you can tell he's about to start screaming like Meereen. And Jon is just not having it. He's like, this is fucked up.
He's disgusted.
Yeah, he's got too much respect for Mance to see him go down like this. And he storms off, and Ollie's like, what the fuck is he doing?
He knocks Ollie out of the way.
Right,
too.
He's like, get out of the way, bitch. And goes and grabs the bow, and Mance is like, his head is starting to jerk back, and all of a sudden, boom, right in the heart. And he has time to another realistic moment where, a lot of times on shows or whatever movies, people will get hit in the heart and just instantly die, And he has time to sort of look down at the arrow and then look at Jon before passing out. which I thought was a really good moment that they got to have that last little bit of eye contact, and he's just like, "Thank you, John," and he's like, "You're welcome."
Yeah, and through this scene too, they cut from Mance several times over to Shireen through the flames.
Yeah, really eerie.
And it foreshadows because she's the next one to get burned.
Yep, super sadly. Yeah.
She even closes her eyes at one point.
So Mance handles this all pretty well, relatively speaking. Whereas things play out very similarly, but also very differently on the books. In the books, like, read it to find out.
Yeah.
I will say that in the books, Mance comes out screaming and freaking out. "I'm not the king of the North," etc.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so read to figure out what the deal is with that, because it is pretty interesting.
Easy.
So yeah, that pretty much wraps up my number 2 is steadfast Mance going down, guns a-blazing. I mean, not, he's not fighting, but he's, sticking to his values, and pretty good stuff. I like that. I like Mance. It's too bad we don't get to see him again.
Yeah, he's a good character. He's another one that burns kind of brightly on this show, and gets a lot of love really fast from the fans.
If you want more of Kieran Hines, check out Rome. Another, I think it's another HBO show.
Oh yeah, he is in Rome,
He plays Julius Caesar.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty great. Pretty great. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 was concessions.
Oh, right.
And I think we covered that pretty well. The only other note that I wanted to make about this scene is when Hizdar is kind of updating Dany on his travels to Astapor. He starts talking about like the politics of it, and Dany stops him. She goes, "I'm not a politician. I am a queen." And Barristan, I love Barristan. He kind of like laughs. He like chuckles at that because it's like, you kind of have to be both, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Barristan's great.
And then they ask about reopening the fighting pits, and Dany is like, "How many times do I have to say no before you get it, you dense fuck?" Right. And he said free men would fight free men. And when he says that, Dario starts tittling his knife and
ladies.
stares at Dany.
Yeah.
And Dany kind of looks back at him and she's like, "Hey."
Yeah, great little moment. He pulls out one of his ladies and starts like rubbing her.
Yeah. So those are the only 2 other little funny notes that I had for that scene.
Concessions, gotcha.
Yeah. So we can actually just move right into your numero uno.
All right, my number 1 is Cersei, the Woods Witch, and Self-Fulfilling Prophecy.
Yes, okay. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, this is always just a fun scene. Our first major flashback, and it's young Cersei and friend. I can't remember her name. But man, this girl playing Cersei really gets a lot of Cersei's subtleties and everything.
Completely.
Yeah, and not so subtleties as well down in her performance.
I have that in my notes that they did a great younger Cersei. They cast her perfectly.
Yeah, and that transition when we finally realize exactly who it is, and it cuts from young Cersei to modern day Cersei. The look on their faces, their posture is just dead on from one another. That transition feels so natural.
Did you figure it out when you first watched it or read it that was Cersei?
Yes, I had listened to the audiobooks because basically I got caught up with the show at the end of season 4. Mountain and the Viper was the first episode I watched live. I had watched the show before reading the books, and then after season 4 finished, I just needed more basically. And so during the off season between season 4 and 5, I listened to all the audiobooks and a shit ton of podcasts and stuff like that. And so by the time season 5 rolled around and we get this first scene, immediately I was like, "Oh, young Cersei." Like, I just fucking knew it instantly.
Yeah. I when she said and I'll gouge your boring eyes out.
Yep.
Is when I was like, that's Cersei.
It's fucking Cersei.
It has to be Cersei.
Yeah, she's, even in youth, just such a fucking bitch, man. She's just the
and
worst.
The scenery of the scene is so gorgeous. The woods that they're walking through, it's so eerie and mysterious and magical.
Yeah, really, really cool. And, oh yeah, she's just so awful. She's like telling the other girl, like, you don't need to be afraid of my father. And I'm like, yes, you do. He's fucking Tywin Lannister. Yeah, you need to be afraid of him. And then when she goes into the tent and the woman is like sleeping and her friend backs up and startles something and freaks out, and the woods witch wakes up. I know you're a witch and you can see the future. Tell me mine. And I love the Woods Witch's response. Everyone wants to know their future until they know their future. You know, and then it's like, no, you don't want to know. It's better to be a mystery, you know, which is funny, poignant little line. And Cersei, of course, this is my father's land, my land, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, like you're,
yes,
you know, like just so fucking just horrid. Tell me my future or I'll have your two boring eyes gouged out of your head. And of course, she's got to drink her blood. That was great.
Yeah, I love that she says that line, though. Everyone wants to know their future until they know their future. Yeah. Because being that this is a flashback and Cersei has kind of allowed this prophecy to play out, it's actually to her own undoing. And I wonder, I mean, this is total speculation, that if she never knew her future, would it play out this way?
Yeah,
it's almost like she kind of got it in her mind that this was going to happen.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Hodor time loop where, like, you know, like if Bran hadn't connected with Hodor in the past and hurt him and given him a glimpse of his future, would any of that have happened at all? Same thing here. Like, if Cersei had never been told this prophecy, would it have self-fulfilled and would it have played out the way that it did?
Maybe some of it would have, but I maybe think that she wouldn't, you know, hate Marjorie as much as she does.
Right. I think that this freaked her out so much that everything that she ever did basically after this was in relation to preventing this horrifying prophecy from occurring. And in the process, she basically caused every aspect of it to occur by the way she alienates herself from potential competition, the way that, you know, like, just everything that happened, like, is result of her actions.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, too. I wrote down in my notes that Maggie needed her blood. And I thought about, like, blood magic and how that's kind of just appeared. It's appeared.
It always has bad consequences. Yeah,
it's appeared with the Dothraki and the Magi. It's appeared with Melisandre. And
terrified the Dothraki, and then terrified Davos with the shadow demon baby.
Yeah.
People don't trust it.
Blood magic is all around this world, and it's used for kind of different religions and different stuff, but I think it all kind of ties to the same magical aspect the show has, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. There are theories that Sansa may have accidentally performed blood magic on one or two occasions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which are pretty cool. I'll try to find them on Reddit or something and link to them on Facebook, because I wouldn't, from memory right now, I wouldn't be able to accurately describe it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's really worth looking into. I'll post something about it for sure.
Awesome.
So she takes a taste of the blood, but first Cersei slices right down the middle of her thumb, and I'm like, why would you do that? Your thumb has like a huge artery in it. Like, if you're gonna cut one of your fingers, you don't want to cut the thumb.
No. Like your pinky.
Yeah. Totally. So any finger other than the thumb, and she slices it right down the middle, and I'm like, this bitch is crazy. And the of course she has to speak like Yoda. 3 questions you get. You know? Sort of playing with the syntax.
I thought that too.
Syntax.
The Yoda.
Yeah.
Yes, not you get 3 questions.
The answers she will not like. Yeah. She doesn't.
Not like the answers you will.
Yeah, there you go. Like the answers you won't. He's fucking great. So, yeah, just kind of funny little prose that she uses there, and some weird questions, you know. I've been promised to the prince. When will we marry? You'll never marry the prince, but you will wed the king. But I'll be queen. Oh, yes, for a time. You know, then comes another younger, more beautiful, to cast you down and take all you hold dear. And she's starting to get a little nervous, and she sort of stutters. Will the king and I have children? No. The king will have 20 children, and you will have 3. And she's like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. And then the creepiest part of the TV prophecy. Gold will be their crowns. Gold their shrouds. And when Joffrey dies, I think that it triggered this prophecy, which may have been lying dormant for some time. But I think that this sort of reinvigorates this paranoia in Cersei's mind, and she starts really acting out to try to prevent the rest of the prophecy from occurring, because she's got 3 blonde kids. She's scared all 3 of them are going to die, and she becomes really overprotective of Tommen and sends Jaime over to try to, you know, save Myrcella, and Myrcella ends up getting killed. She basically, like, you know what I'm saying? God damn it.
I do. I absolutely do. I also find it interesting, too, because both Joffrey and Tommen die with gold crowns on their head, physically on their head.
Ooh.
And I can't remember. I feel like Myrcella was wearing a tiara, but I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, man.
She might have been wearing a tiara in a different scene, and I'm just like juxtaposing whatever that word is, juxtaposing her in that moment into the scene where she dies. But I feel like she's wearing something on her head, some type of headpiece, whether it's a tiara or a headband of some sort, or a flower in her hair or something. But
so it could easily be like a literal crown in all 3 cases, or it could symbolically represent like their hair color,
their blonde hair,
golden Lannister hair, where it's like Targaryen hair is more silvery, Lannister hair is more golden.
Yes.
And then the other thing, gold will be their shrouds. This means like funeral shrouds, but in their cases, they all died as Baratheons with the largely gold sigil, the gold field with the black stag.
That's right.
So their shrouds could be golden. So gold will be their crowns, as in they're all really Lannisters, but gold will be their shrouds, as in they were all Baratheon by name.
Absolutely.
So that pretty much wraps up my number 1. What about yours? Anything else you want to add about Maggie the Frog?
No, she's creepy. That's it.
I guess we can add that there are more lines of prophecy that we don't get on the show that you can get by reading the books. Things that may be important and that may have been too immediately or obviously foreshadowing, that they may have left out to keep surprises for things that happen in the story in the TV show, for instance.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so definitely read the books, like we always say, because there's so much more cool stuff going on. And it just adds so much to the experience.
It does. Even like the little bit I've read, it's, you know, it does enhance it. Definitely.
I can't wait to hear more from you when you get further in. Maybe we can like start covering the books or something at some point.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Varys and Tyrion, and I know we covered them a little bit. About talking about Dany, but I want to go back to the montage of glances through the holes of the crate. It kind of gave me that same vibe, not as disgustingly as Sam's montage.
Oh, right.
But just like the quick flashes, you can kind of hear him breathing in the background. And then Varys with his crate fetish.
Yeah.
Unsnaps him and he just rolls out of this crate and he
Wasted.
looks like shit.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what it's like to stuff your shit through one of those air holes?
No, I only know what it's like to pick up your shit and throw it overboard.
Oh my god, so funny.
Yeah, and I going back to Varys's crate fetish, when he finally kind of gets his balance, Varys has this funny smirk on his face and he goes, "Apologies."
Yeah. That's actually the first line of that scene.
Yeah. So, you know, Tyrion's complaining about, like, why did I have to stay in the crate this entire time? And he goes, I saved your life. If they catch you, they catch me. I cannot say I feel overly guilty about leaving you in that fucking crate. Which is awesome.
Yep.
So they kind of banter back and forth. Tyrion looks around. He figures out that they are in Pentos. We realize that
Tyrion is sick. Like, he's so smart, man.
Yeah, and it actually took me like the second or third time to remember that we met Dany in Pentos.
Right. Yep.
With Illyrio Mopatis. So this totally blew by me the first couple of times I watched this. I was like, Pentos, oh, this is like a new city. I wonder like where this is. And Illyrio Mopatis, when they said that, it did not ring a bell to me until like the second or third time.
Yeah, he's he's used so sparingly that we never really like, you know, get a feel for him. It's not like so memorable that we'd be like, oh, Illyrio Mopatis 5 years later.
No,
you know?
He's only had like 2 or 3 scenes, but while they're, you know, important looking back on, in the moment, they were just kind of like, who's this dude with the weird beard?
Right. Isn't that amazing how in retrospect certain things can be so important that seemed so like innocuous at the time?
This show has all of that in it for sure.
Yeah.
But we come to find a lot of really interesting information in this scene that from the beginning of this series, we find that a group of people saw Robert Baratheon as the disaster that he was.
Yep.
And that Varys unveils that he, from the beginning of this series, has supported a Targaryen
restoration.
Yes.
Yeah, I just have written in my notes, Varys tells all. Like, goddamn, he just discloses everything to Tyrion here.
Yes, and that Westeros needs to be saved from itself. And Tyrion is not listening to any of this.
Yeah.
He's so hungover.
Yeah, he's just like, oh.
And he's just like, shut the fuck up.
Wine. Bring me wine.
He said something like, Varys said something about my lord, and he goes, are you a lord if you kill your father?
Yeah, my lord. I don't think I am anymore. A lord. Are you a lord if you kill your father? I was like, yeah, interesting question.
I don't imagine they'll revoke my nobility for killing a whore. I'm sure it happens all the time.
Yeah. Great line.
Yeah, and so now he's kind of like, you know, he's drinking in between what he's talking about, and he goes, the future is shit, just like the past, and then he vomits all over the place.
It looked like a real vomiting. Like, it was like, it's not like when, you know, an actor is vomiting and they have a little liquid in their mouth and it all spills out in one gush.
No, that was like vomit. I'm pretty sure he like threw up.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was method acting, if they gave him like Ipecac or something and made him
or just
vomit.
Like stuck it, because he drank a lot of liquid up, you know, just kind of like, you know, people can stick their finger down their throat and like throw up pretty fast.
A lot of water with purple dye in it. Red,
or
dye.
He was actually drinking wine and just actually physically vomited because he looked like shit rolling out of that crate.
That's true. Maybe it was method acting all the way. Drunken dinklage.
Who knows? But yeah, so I had to have that scene as my kind of number one because I felt it was really important to the trajectory of the story. Yeah. Because we find out that Varys, like, while he's been on the small council this whole time, he's been supporting Dany. like secretly with Illyrio, which we kind of get a twinge when Arya is hiding in the dungeons in the head, Balerian's head.
Right.
Because they're talking about, but it's such in code at that point, and it's so early on in the series that you don't really pick up on that's what they're talking about. For the most part, that they're trying to get her back into power. So I had to have this as my number one because it shows that Varys has supported Dany secretly from the beginning, and now he's with her going into season 8.
So important. Yeah, this is like, it's crazy, man. He divulges everything to Tyrion here. It's nuts.
Everything, for sure.
So there's some other funny stuff too, like we talked about how they're trading barbs back and forth. Eunuch, spider, master of whisperers, imp, half man. There are faster ways to kill yourself, not for a coward. And he's like, why the fuck did you free me? You didn't have to do that shit. And you could have said no when my brother asked you, right? And he's like, refuse the Kingslayer, a dangerous proposition, which is kind of a funny line. And that's when he goes into explaining that he did it for the kingdoms and everything. Yeah, it's so true. Crazy scene. So that's it for my number one, unless you have anything else you want to add. It was funny how Tyrion said, a drunken dwarf will never be the savior of the Seven Kingdoms. And I liked how there's another funny like back and forth where he's like, what would you do if you were on the throne? You wouldn't terrorize people? And he's like, no. It's like, I think that you'd be good for this. You have your father's instincts for politics, and you have compassion. And he's like, compassion? I killed my lover with my bare hands and shot my own father with a crossbow. And Varys' reply, I never said you were perfect.
Not even close.
Yeah, hilarious.
Yeah.
Thought that was great. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for that scene, I think, too. All right, let's jump into notes. Got anything else you want to bring up?
I do. I actually have about a page of notes left, to be honest. So since I'm just going to start, I think the next note that I have that's kind of in sequential order of the episode is down comes the Harpy.
Yep, that's where I'm at too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And so it gave me like this eerie like look into history of what it would be like to work on the Great Pyramids in Egypt.
Oh, nice.
Kind of like the equipment that they may have used, like the wood paneling to slide.
The microwave levitation.
Yeah. Just those like big sheets of, I guess it's like wood or material for the Harpy to slide down on, but she kind of goes crazy. It like the Harpy kind of starts going crazy and she just kind of starts falling.
Tumbling, and one of the wings gets all bent up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very symbolic for many reasons to tear down the Harpy, especially when this is the episode that we meet the sons of the Harpy.
Yep.
And the guy that is killed in the brothel is the one that the face kind of comes crashing down like right next to, and he goes over and looks at it and he gives it just this little smile.
Yep, we learn his name is White Rat.
White Rat.
And he's pretty muscular for a eunuch.
Yes, he is. And I found it very symbolic that the statue falls, he looks at the statue's face and smiles as kind of like a small victory. Mm-hmm. And then the Harpy kills him with the same face that he was smiling at earlier.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of crazy irony.
Damn. What do you mean the same face?
Well, the Harpy masks resembled the Harpy that fell off the pyramid.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. It wasn't like the exact same face, but it was, a bronze or a gold or whatever.
A reflection of it, you could say.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't identical, but it certainly was the Harpy's face.
Nice.
Just in a mask form versus a statue.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
I thought the special effects work was really good with the throat slitting.
Yeah.
Like,
and the blood splattering.
Yeah, I mean, they showed that knife cutting right through the skin, and it didn't look like it was not overtly. It didn't stick out a lot like a prosthetic would, as you'd expect. It looked really good. It looked really, really good. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Very impressed by that. So that was cool. And that was super creepy. I liked one of the metaphors that Danny was using about how to instigate the Sons of the Harpy to reveal themselves. Basically, they're debating the tactics of what to do, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna send a message. Basically, I want to bury him publicly with honor."
Yes.
And the Sons of Harpies will freak out, basically, and it'll make them very angry. You know, that other guy who she ends up beheading is kind of like worried about this. And she says, "Angry snakes lash out."
Yes,
Makes
I love
chopping off
that.
their heads much easier.
Ah, such a great line.
Yeah, and even the guy who was like nervous about it smiled at that line, because that was pretty fucking cool.
Yes.
Thug life moment.
Da 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 da.
It's the motherfucking D-O-double-G.
Snoop Dogg. Oh man.
Yeah.
Reliving like my elementary, middle school days.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I found it interesting too that Melisandre is very curious why they venture into brothels.
She's basically hoping that he's gonna say, "Oh, we still have dicks," you know.
And he goes, "I don't know. I must go."
Yeah, she's
like awkward.
Yeah, so brutal. She's like, "Well, why? I've heard that, you know, more than one Unsullied has been known to visit Meereen's brothels. May I ask you why?" And she's just
like, "No."
hoping that there's something down there.
Where's the river to hide under or
Yeah.
to duck into?
Totally. Nope. Nothing down there.
Nope. Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal. There's no reason that they could possibly be going there, aside from, you know, what he actually did go there for, just to cuddle a little bit. And
yeah.
it was like,
Snuggle.
it was like she was like being like a mother figure almost to him, you know, like nurturing and everything like that.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah. It was
so
bad.
brutal.
Bad news.
Super bad news. Moving on.
Sure.
John whooping Ollie in the training yard,
Yep.
which is funny. He's giving him advice, and he tells him to keep his shield up or he'll ring his head like a bell. And I believe that this comes from one of John's memories of learning to fight with Robb and Ned teaching them. And
It's
this is
one of
something
Bran's flashbacks with the three-eyed raven.
Nice.
And I believe it's Brandon Stark teaching
Ned.
Ned how to hold up his shield, and it's Brandon Stark that says, "Keep your shield up or I'll ring your head like a bell."
Nice, yeah, because then Ned definitely says this to his kids too when he's training them.
Yep.
So I love it how it's just like an old Stark phrase, basically, that's being passed down, and now it's being taught to young Ollie and the Night's Watchman.
And we see Ghost in this scene.
Oh, nice.
He's eating a bone.
Ghost is the man.
Yeah, he's laying down while they're fighting, kind of in like the lower right-hand corner of the screen, chewing on a bone.
Gotta love Ghost, man. I'm looking forward to plenty of Ghost action this upcoming season.
Oh, please, HBO, blow the budget.
Yes, blow the budget. Love it.
Yeah.
So it cuts to Sam, who's being fucking hilarious. He's talking himself up, you know, and was it Gilly's like, "Shouldn't you be training too?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I'm hardly a new recruit. I mean, how many brothers can say that they've killed a White Walker and a Thenn? You know, I might be the first in history."
I know, he's totally like boasting about it.
Yeah, so fucking funny. Showing off for his girl, talking himself up. And I'm surprised that Alistair and Janice, as they're walking around, I'm surprised they're like, not like, "Tarly, get away from that woman. You know, we know what you're doing."
Yeah, and they go, poachers, thieves, not soldiers. And they look at Sam like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah.
That's all I have for that scene. I was like, wait, I thought I had another bullet point, and I didn't.
We learned that Sir Dennis Mallister has commanded the Shadow Tower for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think we get to see him at some point as well, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Oh, he's one of the people that's running for Lord Commander. Oh, yeah, and so Gilly's like, Sam, don't let them send us away. Like, you can't. And he's like, I told you, wherever you go, I go too. You know. She's like, you can't leave, they'll execute you. And he kind of like looks, he's like, oh yeah. Like he has like a moment of realization there, it looks like. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And Melisandre totally.
You sound like what's his face? Peter. What? Yeah.
Exactly. 347 vaginas, please.
Vaginas.
Yeah. So then Melisandre shows up and tells Jon that the king wants a word. And she's
totally
just
creeping on him.
Yeah, she's creeping him out. And she just straight up asks him, like, well, first he's like, you're not cold, my lady. And she's never fucking cold. The Lord's fire lives within my loins, Jon Snow. Feel. And she grabs his hand and like puts it to her face, and he kind of pulls it away and then like goes to put his glove on. And he's always wearing a glove in the books because he burned his hand very badly on the lantern when he saves the Lord Commander from the White in the first season. Yeah, in book 1. So his hand is all scarred up and he's constantly like stretching it out and like, you know, gripping his sword to make sure his grip is strong and things like that. So I just liked like a quick little look at his hand, and he's like moving it around, looks like he's stretching it, and you know, goes probably to put his glove back on. Just a slight little book nod, which I thought was well placed.
I noticed that too. He does that a lot throughout the series. So It's a nice little nod to the books.
Nice, yeah. I haven't really noticed it aside from that.
When he's kind of nervous, he does it when he's nervous.
Nice, yeah. I'll pay attention for that. So she straight up asks him, you know, as he like recoils from her touch, you know, are you a virgin? He's like, no. Good. She replies.
I think he's weirdly attracted to her because we know that he likes redheads. I mean, he was when he almost lost his virginity, he was going to have sex with Roz.
Yep.
Then he lost his virginity to Ygritte, and now the Red Woman's like creeping up on him, and well, we know that he likes what he sees when she takes off he's like cupping her boobs, and he's like, all like melting. But
yeah, Sansa better look out.
Oh my god. Oh yeah. But just with that, the Red Woman's music is playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so eerie and so beautiful at the same time. It's actually one of my favorite scores that Ramin Djawadi does in general.
Nice.
It's just very...
Light of the Seven, you said?
No, Red Woman.
Oh, the Red Woman. Right.
Yeah, anytime she kind of comes around, it comes on, just like Reigns of Castamere come on with the Lannisters. So she has kind of a theme song, if you will, as well, and it comes on in this
motif, you could call it.
Yeah.
At least the melody. But yeah, a whole theme song for sure. She's just like, she's eyeing him up big time, and she, you know, her whole like seduction of Gendry type thing for the King's blood. Jon has King's blood too. You know, he's got Targaryen blood. She might sense that.
I think she senses that in him.
He also has Stark blood, and the Starks were the kings of the North for like 8,000 years or some shit, right? So he's like got just as much about as much King's blood as anybody alive. When you really want to, you know, think about it.
Yeah. I think she sees that. I'm wondering if maybe in some of her visions about them going north, maybe she was getting some visions of Jon, but she was kind of transposing them onto Stannis.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
And then she when she saw Jon for the first time through the flames, she was like, oh, I mean, like, maybe she's attracted to him, but maybe, like, physically, but I think it's coming off that way, but I think she's attracted to his blood, his, like what you were just saying, that there's something really special
something
about him.
Yeah, totally. She just senses something. And I don't think that she like thinks it's King's blood and that she's using it that she's like plotting about how she could use his blood per se. But it's just kind of interesting that how she's so attracted to him for whatever reasons they may be, you know?
Yeah. So I love the way she announces him to Stannis. She goes, the bastard of Winterfell.
Yeah.
And then this is when Jon kneels.
Ah, true. Nice.
Yes.
Good call.
Yes.
Oh, man. And he's like, you know who rules at Winterfell now, right? Roose Bolton. The traitor who plunged a dagger in Robb Stark's heart. One of our listeners, I think, pointed out that he's talking about avenging his brother, but at the same time, he put blood magic on Robb Stark with the leech, you know?
He did. That's right.
You know, it's not like his hands are clean in this situation.
No, and I love when Jon says, I want a great many things, your grace, but I am a sworn brother of the Night's Watch now.
Right, yeah. So it's just like Mance sticking to his guns in his own way. Yeah,
it's just, we know that there's a lot of wants that Jon has had, and one of them is to always be a Stark. And the fact that Stannis was talking about avenging his brother, you know, that's the clear reason. But I also think, he's still grieving over Ygritte too.
Definitely.
So I think he's, you know, maybe thinking, I want kind of her back. I want to be safe, you know. So I loved when he said that. It rang really true to kind of his character from the beginning of always wanting to be a Stark, and
just always wanting something out of reach.
Yeah. And always being the bastard of Winterfell, which is exactly how Melisandre announced him to the king.
Yep, and it's sort of similar to, say, Lord Snow, which was kind of like insulting to him as well.
Yeah, she could have just said, this is Jon Snow.
Mm-hmm. But like, people are always like using like sort of insulting titles, things that he's, you know, like Lord Snow is like picking fun of him for being like a bastard
of a lord.
And same thing, like bastard of Winterfell just rubs it in. He's like, oh fuck, you know, I hate being a bastard.
No one likes being a bastard.
Yeah.
So that's I guess, I also love the sentiment that Davos has here. He goes, many of them love you, many of them don't, when they're talking about how many people, you know, at Castle Black like Jon.
Yeah, foreshadowing all those people stabbing him.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And Davos is the one who finds him.
Oh, shit. That's true. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, so I think, we pretty much covered the rest of this scene.
Yep. Next, I have Cersei putting up with idiots.
Okay.
You know, everybody's coming up to her like, oh, your father was a force to be reckoned with, you know.
I
wouldn't presume to claim to have known him as such, but, you know, his presence was enough to make it clear just how formidable a person you were dealing with, you know. Yeah. And all these people are, like, kissing his ass, Loras, Pycelle, whatever. And she's just, like, blowing them all off. And, you know, walking over to somebody else and they say something stupid and she just walks off, ignoring them, basically. She's just such a diva.
She's just a bitch.
Yeah.
Just a cold-hearted bitch.
Yeah, totally.
There's really, like, no other way to describe her.
Yep. And then we learn that, you know, she's like, I never trusted Varys. We learn that people are, like, talking, you know, and that everybody knows that they've connected 2 and 2. Like, Varys disappears, Tywin died, like, he had something to do with it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is kind of funny. So Lancel shows up and Cersei doesn't recognize him, and neither do any of us, because he looks totally different than the last time we saw him.
I know, he's like a buff little... he's actually like a good-looking guy, you know, like... because I never thought of him as a good-looking guy. And
yeah, before he was like a little blonde girl.
I was like, oh, hey there, you just grew up.
So that was funny. And he ends up telling her, I tempted you into our unnatural relations, and I led you into the darkness. And she's like, I doubt you've ever led anyone anywhere, which is a funny line. She's just ruthless.
Yeah, and before that, though, she talks to her Uncle Kevin, and he said they call themselves Sparrows, the bloody fanatics. Right. They never would have come to the capital when Tywin was alive.
Right.
So we see that Jaime's concern is already
being realized. True here.
Yeah. Yep.
Totally. Good point. And then she's like to Lancel, I see your wounds from the Blackwater have healed. And he's like, it wasn't my wounds that needed healing. It's like, meaning like he needs to atone for his actions.
His incest.
And then by, doing something with Robert and the wine and the boar hunt, like feeding him this extra strong wine, basically, just relentlessly. As we learn.
Yeah, so we do discover that was on purpose. As a first-time viewer, obviously. I mean, we knew that Cersei kind of had something to do with it, but that was the plan. Get him really drunk. And we don't really know if there was poison in the wine or if there was like maybe a little bit of essence of nightshade in there to like... Yeah,
something to like an adjuvant to like exaggerate the effects.
Make him a little bit drowsy, or he just got served so much wine that he was just so fucking drunk that,
right.
That's never really brought up, but,
mm-hmm.
It's room for interpretation on how he truly died.
Just kind of like a big reveal, like Liza mentioning, and you told me to put those drops in his drink, like one of those type of moments. So that's pretty cool.
And poison is a woman's weapon. So
yeah, totally. And Cersei is just like so insufferable throughout this whole thing, I know. Someone says to her, I will pray for your father's soul. And she's like, the day Tywin Lannister's soul needs your help.
It was Lancel that said that.
Oh, Lancel. Oh my God. So brutal.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about that one?
Nope, that was it for that scene for me.
All right, next we have Olivar and Loras, and Loras's Dorn-shaped, birthmark or whatever it is. And his death is his like downfall is foreshadowed in this scene by when Marjorie comes in and says, perhaps you might consider being a bit more discreet. And he's like, why? They all know about me anyway. But it's Olivar here that ends up being his downfall with this birthmark thing. So he's like, what's the point in trying to keep a secret in a place like this? Everybody knows everything anyway. But it's his flagrance. Is that the right word? This flagrance with this that ends up being his downfall, and he gets arrested for sodomy and like, I don't know, whatever they call it, being gay.
Yeah. I don't know what they... Well, I mean, Cersei has a derogatory term for them, but I don't really know like what they do. Or no, it wasn't Cersei. Was it Olenna that said that they were pillow biters?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think Cersei said it too.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Yeah,
fun
I don't
ones.
know what they like actually call.
What the crime, the charges? I don't remember. We'd have to. I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, that's true.
So I just thought that was some interesting foreshadowing there, that this ends up being a big problem.
I thought it was funny that Marjorie does just not care at all that she's seen her brother's like nutsack dangling down as she walks into the room.
Right. Remember when she found Renly was with him, she was like, well, we can both, you can take turns with us or whatever. Like we can both help you out to try to make this work.
Yeah. Just crazy. Weird.
Yeah.
To like have a threesome with your brother.
Right. She's like, whatever is necessary to get you revved up. Like, just let me know. You won't.
Just close your eyes. Go to town.
You can close your eyes and pretend I'm him.
That's such a weird sentiment.
Right.
When it's your brother, like not to be gay, but just like, hey, you can pretend I'm my brother. That's weird.
Yeah, totally weird.
Yeah. So, what's your name? Oliver. I'm afraid my brother is keeping the queen or the king waiting.
Oliver, right? Yeah.
Oliver. Yeah, I always say Oliver.
Well, he says Oliver, and then she says Oliver.
Oh, maybe that's why I call him Oliver then. Like Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
So he like kind of gets up and leaves.
Yeah, and there's something interesting that we learned that their plan is to marry Cersei to Loras so that they can then extract her out and away from King's Landing to High Garden.
Yes.
For like strategic purposes, which is exactly like Tywin's trying to make her leave. They're trying to make her leave, you know, and then it would just be Marjorie and Tywin, or would have been at least, digging their claws into each other or into Joffrey Tommen, like she had predicted. Although Tywin's gone now, so it would just be Marjorie controlling Tommen.
Yeah, now the claws are actually Cersei and Marjorie.
Right, and so think about that. That would perfectly mirror the prophecy. A younger, more beautiful queen coming and taking everything from you. By taking Tommen and removing Cersei from the situation, that would effectively be happening.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I love that, Marjorie's sentiment is like, if she doesn't go to Highgarden, you're going to be like stuck with her. And she goes, perhaps. And she already has, her wheels spinning on how to get Cersei out of there. And we see that kind of come to fruition when she's finally married to Tommen. And she talks about like, oh, you should send your mom back to Casterly Rock. It's her childhood home. Like, she would have so much fun there. She always goes on about how she hates King's Landing. And Tommen's like, oh, great idea. I'm going to send her off.
Yep. Hilarious. Anything else you want to add about that scene?
No, and I think that's actually the end of my notes.
Same here.
Cool.
All right. We will take a little break, guys. Enjoy the music. We'll be right back. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. HBO released a new teaser trailer for Season 8, like we mentioned earlier, which I'm sure you guys have already seen. If not, go check it out. It's all over YouTube and everywhere.
From Digital Spy, Game of Thrones creators have known how the show is going to end since Season 3. Now that we've exhausted that new Season 8 trailer for potential clues, we're ready to get back and rewatch one season of Game of Thrones in particular. Because thanks to the creators Dan Weiss and David Benioff, we now know which Thrones installment was instrumental in setting up how it all ends. Ooh. While appearing at Comic-Con Experience in Brazil, Dan and David told Maisie Williams that they decided how the series would wrap up pretty early on in the process. Sometime after we finished the third season is when we knew, they revealed, suggesting the events of Season 3 were especially inspiring. So yeah, excuse us while we pore over these episodes. We've got new theories to work on. Ooh, might have to go back and watch Season 3.
Yeah, not a bad idea. All right, moving on to Game of Thrones and history. Continuing from EMGN.com's 12 historical events that inspired Game of Thrones and proved our world is just as brutal as Westeros.
Number 10, direwolves and dire wolves. Dire wolves are an extinct cousin of wolves that are quite obviously the inspiration for Ghost, Grey Wind, Nymeria, and the other dire wolves of Westeros. Interesting.
Yeah, while they were bigger and stronger than wolves, they weren't like as big as dire wolves are, depicted on the show. Yeah,
sure.
Basically.
That's still pretty big, though, because, I mean, like, a full-grown wolf is, like, 150 pounds. So, I mean, if they're bigger than that, that's, like, quite a substantial creature.
They're pretty big, yeah. Next, Peter Littlefinger Baelish, and Oliver Cromwell. Much like Littlefinger, Oliver Cromwell was a minor nobleman. There are many similarities between the palace treasurer, Peter, and the military leader, Oliver. As Littlefinger continues to climb the hierarchical ladder, we have to wonder whether he will follow in the footsteps of his real-life inspiration, who eventually found a way to become Lord Protector of the Commonwealth. Well, we know the answer to this now. He does not. But,
he does not.
You know, he did his thing. He tried.
All right. More historical parallels from user Bahukari on Reddit. You can compare the Dance of Dragons of the Targaryens with the Anarchy, an English civil war in the 12th century, where after the king died, Henry I, aka Viserys I, the succession was divided when he named his daughter, Empress Matilda, aka Rhaenyra, as his heir. But then his nephew, Stephen of Blois, aka Aegon II, seized the throne.
Yeah, seems to pretty much mirror the Dance of the Dragons there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Bahukari goes on to list the Titan of Braavos as being based on the Colossus of Rhodes, which is a great parallel. So I did a little research on the Colossus of Rhodes to read to you guys. From Britannica.com, the Colossus of Rhodes was a colossal statue of the sun god Helios that stood in the ancient Greek city of Rhodes and was one of the 7 wonders of the world. The sculptor Chares of Lindus, another city on the island, created the statue, which commemorated the raising of Demetrius I, the first Polyocrates, long siege 305 BCE of Rhodes. Made of bronze and reinforced with iron, it was weighted with stones. The Colossus was said to be 70 cubits tall, or 105 feet, or 32 meters, and it stood beside Mandrakeon Harbor, perhaps shielding its eyes with one hand, as a representation in a relief suggests. They think it's technically impossible that the statue could have straddled the harbor entrance, and this popular belief apparently only dates from the Middle Ages, but I would be hesitant to say that it's technically impossible. I mean, yeah, that's just not true.
Yeah.
The statue, which took 12 years to build, but from 294 to 282 BCE, was toppled by an earthquake at about 225 BCE. So that sucks. It didn't last very long. The fallen Colossus was left in place until 654 CE, when Arabian forces raided Rhodes and had the statue broken up and the bronze sold for scrap. Supposedly, the fragments totaled more than 900 camel loads. That's hardcore, man. Imagine that thing just lying there for hundreds of years. It's crazy.
Ugh. Yeah, for sure. The last one that we have are Ironborn are basically Vikings, and Dothraki are probably based partly on Mongols and Scythians, especially the horse-centric military.
You hear that?
Caw, caw.
Sir Matthew of House Repp. Little does Daenerys realize that as she topples the giant Harpy from atop the Great Pyramid, she is giving rise to the sons of the Harpy who go on to terrorize Meereen. What were Unsullied doing in that brothel anyway? As Ollie trains with Jon Snow, Sweet Robin trains with Lord Royce. I would really be interested to see how Robin is now, 3 years after last seeing him as a spoiled and weak child. Love the title, speaking of both the war to come that Mance wishes Stannis good luck with, both against the Boltons and the White Walkers, and the war to come Varys speaks to Tyrion about with Dany coming to Westeros. Ah, yes.
Yes.
2 different wars to come. The wars to come. Yes. Very nice. I like that parallel. Or that,
very good.
Yeah, that way of describing that. Thanks for writing, Sir Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Sir Matthew. Okay, Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pie Romancer. I love that so much. You know when Varys says to Tyrion, I didn't do it for you, I did it for the realm. I used to take this line at face value, but now I'm thinking it might be an echo of For the Watch
Nice.
scene, and possibly a foreshadowing of Varys' eventual downfall. I really hope that Varys isn't a traitor because I'm pretty sure I like him. Hashtag #et2ollie.
That's great.
Nice.
The last thing that Caesar said apparently when he was getting killed was "et tu, Brutus," as Brutus stabbed him to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like Ollie killing Jon Snow, same type of thing. So funny.
Awesome.
Always good to hear from you, Lady Lisa.
Yes, it is.
And thank you for all of your work on the website as well.
And can I just say, I'm obsessed with your artwork. It's unreal.
I know,
I
it's so
watched
good.
you doing the video on your portrait of Robin Williams, who I've actually met before.
No
he
way.
came into my chemistry class in high school.
That's so cool.
He was like best friends with my chemistry teacher, and he drove an '89 red Honda Civic hatchback.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so I just wanted to shout out to Lady Lisa because you are quite the artist.
Yeah, that Robin Williams portrait was
Insane.
next level. Amazing.
Yeah. I was like infatuated. I watched the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm like, oh crap, its body's crooked.
Yeah, when you can like replicate reality to that level of indistinguishability, it's like pretty fucking impressive.
Yes.
For sure. If you guys want to check out her book too, she has a beautifully illustrated children's book called The People You May See, available on Amazon.
Yes, I think I'm going to get that for my son, actually.
Nice.
I think he'd really enjoy that. And since Christmas is around the corner, he's really into books right now. So I think I might have to do that.
Killer. Well, use our Amazon link.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I sure will. You know that.
Lady Sarah of House Larkham. It's ironic how Stannis says to Jon, do you want to avenge your brother Robb? So this is what I was remembering before. It was Lady Sarah.
Perfect.
It's ironic how Stannis says to Jon, do you want to avenge your brother Robb? When he and Melisandre used Gendry to put a curse on Robb when he was fighting for power against him. Jon killing Mance foreshadows him telling the elders at Hardhome and eventually gaining the respect of the other wildlings and them accepting him as a leader. Yeah, very true. Cersei saying to Jaime that all the people out there are waiting to see the most feared person in Westeros is really dead, predicts how House Lannister doesn't recover from the death of Tywin. Good observations,
Yes,
Lady Sarah.
absolutely.
Very nice. Lady Lucy of House Jane. I find it really interesting that we don't see the whole prophecy from Maggie the Frog. Does that mean the TV show is changing the whole storyline? What do you guys think? I think that they're probably just leaving out a couple pieces of the prophecy so they're not quite as telegraphed when they happen on the show. She goes on, I love the fact that Jon kills Mance. It's the ultimate act of mercy, one which helps his reputation with the wildlings. Also, does anyone else find Melisandre really creepy when she asks Jon if he's a virgin? It made my skin crawl. Oh yeah, she is a creeper for sure. Plus she's like 10 times his age or something, so it makes it even worse. Oh, and just another comment on the Stannis rescue. I loved seeing Stannis and his troops ride in, but I hated seeing the wildlings beaten down. How did you feel about that? I would have to agree. I hate seeing poor innocents get slaughtered, but there was one moment of levity or comedy as that one guy tries to rush Stannis and gets trashed by the guy on horseback. Thanks so much for writing in, Lady Lucy.
Awesome feedback.
Thanks, guys. Always good to hear from you. All right, that's our show, episode 83. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thanks for listening. We love you guys.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White.
Yes!
Yeah, give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air. Guys, Christmas is coming. This year for your online holiday shopping, just go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases. To support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMpodcast and patreon.com/GOMpodcast to donate an amount of your choosing. There are links to both of those at gameofmicrophones.com. We want to give a warm thank you to our first supporters on Patreon. Huge thanks to Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Lady Candace of House Tews, Lord Jeff of House Allen, Sirenicide, Luke the Low Duke, and Lord Zach of House Bruce. We love you guys and appreciate your patronage. Thank you.
Yes, that's awesome. Thanks, guys.
If you'd like to call, you can call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
If you would like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOMpodcast. And please give us a like and review on there. That would be great. And for some reason, we're no longer appearing in the search results for Game of Thrones in the iPhone Podcasts app because they limit the number of search results that you can see. So if you guys have a second, please give us a nice review on iTunes, and that might help bump us back up into the search results. We would appreciate it.
Yes. Imp Slap. You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. We can't create a custom URL on YouTube until we have at least 100 subscribers, so please subscribe as well. Likes, comments, and shares are also appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GOM Podcast.
We're on Tumblr too, at Game of Microphones.
Eunuch, the Spider, the Master of Whisperers.
Imp, half-man, there are faster ways to kill yourself.
Not for a coward.
You are many things, my friend, but not a coward.
You never told me why you set me free.
Your brother asked me to.
Could have said no.
Refuse the Kingslayer? A dangerous proposition.
Not as dangerous as releasing me. You risked your life, your position, everything. Why? You're not family. You owe me nothing.
I didn't do it for you. I did it for the Seven Kingdoms.
A drunken dwarf will never be the savior of the Seven Kingdoms.
I don't believe in saviors. I believe men of talent have a part to play in the war to come.
You're going to have to find another soldier. I'm done with Westeros, and Westeros is done with me.
You have many admirable qualities. Self-pity is not one of them. Any fool with a bit of luck can find himself born into power, but earning it for yourself, that takes work.
I'm not well suited for work.
I think you are. You have your father's instinct for politics, and you have compassion.
Compassion?
Yes.
I killed my lover with my bare hands. I shot my own father with a crossbow.
I never said you were perfect.
I'm sure by the time I return, his skills will have improved immeasurably. Well, yeah, sure.
Royce is like, I can't guarantee that.
Yeah. Pathetic little Robin dangling the sword around. Yeah, exactly.
Save me. He's even like overpowering in death. He had like that stare going. I'm like, ooh.
The death stare. The spider
the
and the
imp.
imp.
The spider.
Yeah.
The people that get their throats slit don't die right away. Or like get stabbed in the gut, they don't die right away either.
Yeah, and sometimes they even just magically heal like Arya.
Yeah.
No one's seen Drogon in weeks. For all I know, he's flown halfway across the world. Spin-off show idea! You know, Drogon's adventures, just him flying around, just destroying everything and everyone in his path.
Yes.
Yes, the ultimate spin-off.
Be a dragon.
Yeah. They're like, why the fuck did you leave us here, Mom? It's dark, you know, and there's not enough sheeps and stuff, you know. Yeah, really good parallel. They just got smaller and smaller as the generations went. And until the tiniest little one was so tiny.
Super teeny tiny.
Thanks, Shireen, you know.
Right. He knocks Ollie out of the way,
right,
too.
He's like, get out of the way, bitch. Cersei, the Woods Witch, and self-fulfilling prophecy.
Is that your dog snoring?
Oh, can you hear her?
Just when you stop talking.
That's funny. Beagle face head. Yeah, I don't know how she got back in here. She snuck in here somehow.
Oh, Beagle.
I'll just leave her. I don't even care.
She sounds so peaceful. No, I only know what it's like to pick up your shit and throw it overboard.
She's never fucking cold. The Lord's fire lives within my loins, Jon Snow. You know, feel.